What'd you break?
Welcome to today's podcast. I am Lee Perry. I am the pirate therapist, and we are welcoming back Dwayne. He is a previous guest. More than once, although you only saw one because one of them got all screwed up. I would say it was somebody else's fault, but I'm pretty sure I screwed up something, technically speaking, and that episode was no good. So, Dwayne is kind enough to come back and visit us again. Say hi, Dwayne.
Hi, Dwayne. Sorry. Yeah. Hello, everybody. It's me again. I'm back.
All right. Well, today I just wanted to talk a little bit about decision paralysis. Do you know what that is?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What is
It's
your understanding?
Okay, look, everybody says fight or flight. It's fight, flight, freeze. Okay? So it's engage with the problem, run away from the problem, or I don't know what to do. And then you spin, or you just get stuck in this rut. I'm very familiar with that. Like, I watch my teenagers do it all the time. They're just like, I don't know what to do. And it's like, well, you spent more time trying to figure out what to do than it would have taken you to either do it or walk away, So
Okay. Well, here's a little bit about what I have on decision paralysis.
I like it.
Okay. Sometimes it's called analysis paralysis. It happens when you have so many choices or so much information to consider that you can't decide. That's not always what's going on, but that is often what's going on. So instead of moving forward, you get stuck weighing options, overthinking consequences, second guessing yourself. Sometimes we have too many options. Sometimes we're afraid of making the wrong choice. We're afraid of getting into trouble. Sometimes that's rooted in shame, perfectionism, which, if you ask me, is also rooted in shame because we're perfectionistic when we're afraid that if we're wrong, we're going to be judged harshly. But that's my opinion. Anyway, or we just feel overwhelmed. We have so much information brought in that we don't know what to do with it. We just sit there and spin. And some of the things that are common in decision paralysis is we want to have an absolute certainty before we make a decision. We don't want to act until we know a guaranteed outcome. Another one is worrying about the irreversible consequences. Again, we're afraid of what's going to happen if we decide and we're wrong, or lack of clear priorities or decision-making criteria. I don't have enough information to go on, and so I'm afraid of getting it wrong or getting in trouble. And I see this happen in job sites all over the place where employees don't have enough information to feel confident making a decision and moving forward. And so they just kind of lock up because they know they have to get it done, but they don't understand. The parameters aren't clear, I guess. So they don't know how to move forward effectively. And again, they're afraid of the outcome.
Well, and sometimes people get to the point where they're like, you're talking about, maybe I don't have enough information.
Mhm.
I think subconsciously, most of the people who are like, I don't have enough information to do this task or to do what I think, the correct thing, is that they don't know what the outcome's going to be, regardless of what they do. It's just, I want to know how it's going to end before I do it. And so that's the information they're lacking, is seeing into the future. And the fact of the matter is, you take the information, you say, this is what they told me, and I'm going to do exactly what they told me as far as I can do, and just do if I do what they said and they come back and they say it's wrong, I'm going to say, well, then you didn't explain it well enough because I did what you said. And that's something you got to train yourself, because like if they say move all these pallets to this area in the warehouse, so you move all those pallets in that area of the warehouse, you make it the smallest grouping possible, and then they come in and say, well, no, I wanted them stacked this many high instead, and only this high, or like in this specific area. Well, you didn't tell me that. You said move them and you pointed to a general area. That's something we need to just be able to do.
So what do you think the potential impact is of decision paralysis? What do you think the effects of having that would be?
You actually do miss out on things in life.
Okay, how so?
You absolutely, because if you don't make a decision and you don't move forward, then number one, you don't show your creativity in solving the problem. And at the same time, you come off as someone who has to be handheld in everything, meaning that you've just squashed any future for them to say, wow, that's not exactly what I meant, but it works and we like it. So there's that. Now discovery is gone and that inspiration is gone. But at the same time, then they come back, if you haven't done anything, then they're looking at you going, why aren't you doing something so basic and simple? Why is this such a hard concept for you to understand? Now you've limited any chance of ever moving up in there, because they're going to say this person doesn't have the ability to follow simple instructions, even though they may not be simple to you. They're simple to the people giving to you. Now they have colored their opinion of you. So you're going to miss out one way or the other. Okay. The worst case scenario is you do it and they say, this is not what I asked for. This is terrible. And you can say, well, I'm afraid I misunderstood what you were asking for. I simply did what I understood that you said. Now it's a teachable moment, and they can say, okay, so this person can accept that they've made a mistake, and they're willing to learn.
Okay.
So you have to do it that way. You've got to do something, because if you don't do anything, it's only negative outcome. All right. If I'm going to jump in the water and save the baby from the crocodile, but I might get bit.
Oh,
all
that poor
right.
baby.
Okay. Yeah. If I'm going to jump in and but I might get bit by the crocodile, but the baby will get bit by the crocodile, but I don't, the baby's gone and you're a piece of crap, because everybody's going to be like, dude, you're the lifeguard. You're supposed to go save them. That kind of thing. It's like,
That's a job I would not want. I do not want to be a lifeguard where I have to save babies from alligators.
No, this is true, but it's just the concept of there's that you're in a position where you need to act, and you're too busy trying to figure out the consequences of your actions to do. In a lot of cases, it's really simple. Does it feel right? Do it. Does it not feel right? Don't do it. You
Okay.
have to be able to have a moral compass that says, yeah, I can do. And for most decisions in life, there isn't a moral compass applied. It's just this action needs to happen, so make it happen.
Do or do not. There is no try.
No try. No try.
That was a terrible Yoda.
That was a terrible Yoda, but I'm gonna try not to hate today. So.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
I need a drink. Sorry.
No, you go ahead. So some of the impacts then would be wasted time, missed opportunities. Certainly everybody involved, if there's a misunderstanding or a miscommunication, or you just lock up, there's stress, there's frustration. We have to be careful, or we really can impact things in a negative way just by giving up rather than deciding.
Well, and the funny thing that people don't get, sorry, excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt, but it's that if you don't make a choice, you've made a choice. Inaction is a choice. In the end, inaction is a choice.
That's what I was going to say. It's a Rush song, actually.
It is. I'm sorry. It's playing in my head now.
Yeah, I like Rush. If you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice.
And that's the problem that we're in nowadays, is that, again, I always throw it back to social media. So many people can see what you do now, because it can get blasted wide, that if you screw up, people are going to be making fun of you. All right. You do something great, a lot of people will be like, hey, good job for him. But if you make the mistake and it gets caught on camera, you are a meme. So why would anybody want to act? Because now they're afraid that, heavens to Betsy, somebody doesn't know the full context of what's going on, and you get called something really bad, like they say you're a racist or some kind of white supremacist because you happen to be in the vicinity of something that may or may not have happened that you could have stopped and you didn't do it. Or do you get what I'm saying? You see, It's all those different attributes. And so everybody gets afraid. Well, but then they have embodied that so much that, like, my kids freak out about doing things because they're not sure how it's going to end. And I'm like, you just have to see. You're at home. No one's going to see it but your family. And you're still locking up. You need to decide what you're going to do and do something, and then, reap the consequences and learn.
Do you remember my favorite quote?
Okay, hold on. Which one? Okay, hold on.
I know I have a bunch. I have a bunch of quotes, but I have one that stands way above all the others.
That was that was the poem, right?
It's the Pirate King.
The pirate. Oh yeah, the Pirate
from the
King.
Pirates of Penzance.
Yes.
Always follow the dictates of your own conscience and chance the consequences.
You have to.
Do what you think is right, regardless of what anybody watching is going to say, think, feel, or do. You have to act according to your own compass that says this is the right thing and you should do that. Even if you end up being wrong, if you figure out later that that was the wrong decision, you might feel bad about that, but you would still be able to sleep at night because you made the decision that you believe to be correct in that time, in that moment.
We would like, and well, I mean, that's what you want to have happen, and that's what should happen. Unfortunately, I think currently in our world, there are people who actually can't sleep with making the right decision because they get so much grief from other people. Even if they did the right thing, other people turn around and say, well, we don't agree with that. Now those people second guess themselves when they shouldn't, because you get so much pressure telling you that you're wrong and you're evil and you did all these bad things. No, dude, you just made a choice. All right?
You want to know an example of a common place I see people freeze up in making choices?
Yeah, let's go.
Dating. Where do you want to go? I don't know. Where do you want to go? I don't know. Where do you want to go? And then, yeah, how often, especially once people are married or cohabitating, or they're just in that permanent put together relationship, what's the usual outcome when they start doing that?
Fight, or they don't go out, or they don't spend
Exactly.
as much time together, and then it becomes a rift between them.
And then
And now
they
this is
eventually quit trying.
and see, and this is where I get controversial because I'm like, it's funny. I have a not so traditional relationship as far as my wife makes all the money, but that's because she is a skilled worker. Whereas when it's time to go out, I'll say, is there somewhere you would like to go? And if she doesn't say, if she says no, then I just choose because I'm still the man of the house. I'm still the head of the household. I'm going to make that decision. She's going to go with it. If she doesn't like it, she can say something and then there can be a conversation. But if she's not going to give me any input, I'm making a decision. That's where we're going. And then we because otherwise it just turns into this, well, I don't want that and I don't want that. And then you have kids. And if you're all trying to go out at once in a long-term relationship and you got the kids and one kid's like, I want McDonald's and one kid's like, I want this and one, and then it's all everybody's fighting about it. It's just like somebody needs to be a leader in that particular case. However you want to work it out in your relationship is what I should say. But my controversial take is in my house, I make the decision.
Okay. I suppose if you two are okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
One a couple of things I suggest to couples that come in and see me as a therapist is when it comes to dating, I have, okay, rules according to Lee when it comes to dating is first of all, you should be dating at least once a week. Second of all, in order to avoid that decision paralysis, what I recommend is you take turns. If you're dating every week, this week is my turn, next week is your turn. But beyond that, when it's my turn to take charge of the date, I don't get to put it on you. I have to decide. I have to choose. I am responsible to make sure we have an opportunity to go on a date. When it's your turn, that is true for you. It doesn't get put on me to decide where do I want to go or what do I want to do. I also recommend that when it's your turn, you be a little selfish. You pick something that is interesting to you, something that you want to do. And I get some quizzical looks about that sometimes because people are like, well, that's kind of selfish. Like, no, what you're doing is you're avoiding decision paralysis, but you're trying new things that perhaps you're interested in, but you've never brought up before because you're always doing the what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? And so you just kind of lock up and don't go anywhere. But this way, you get to try things that you're interested in that you want to share with your partner. And it's not selfish because the next week it's their turn and they get to do the same thing. So both of you still get to decide. But this way, you're kind of forced into making a decision. You have to pick. You don't get to make the excuse of, well, you didn't say anything, or I was afraid you were not going to like what I picked, so I didn't pick. It's, I picked
I
what
mean,
I wanted to do, and I wanted to share that with you. And here's the thing, worst case scenario, if you go on a date and it's a bad date and it just is awful, most bad experiences, like a bad date, usually end up as very good stories. Once we
yes.
get past the emotion, they become a good story.
Yeah, I remember a friend of mine told me this story one time that he was trying to introduce his significant other to a friend of his, and they played chicken, him and his friend, and there was a kiss on the lips, and the significant other was like, "Wow, that's your friend, okay?" And it became a very fun story that they laugh about years later, and I just thought it was super funny because it's like you're just sharing a little bit of yourself, and it may be a little embarrassing, but at the same time it's funny because everybody's laughing about it. And because the two friends, they were like, dude, I wasn't gonna give up and you weren't gonna give up. And it's a joke. And it makes it fun. And it's a weird but fun experience. It's all about just sharing who you are. All right. If I took my wife rock climbing, all right, that's not her thing. I know it. Power off. But she's definitely gonna say, I didn't realize that this was something that's important to you. Just like when I'm cooking so much now, she's like, dude, it's always rice. I'm like, well, I love rice and I love that kind of food. And she's like, can we have? She's like, I want something else. All right, I'll cook something else.
That
And that,
reminds me, sorry, I'm going to cut in here just because I've got a funny story that's a little kind of embarrassing to tell, but it's funny. So it fits the theme, I guess. My wife was, I think she was cooking dinner or something, and she just kind of looked over at me. She says, "I love you." And I looked back at her, and I saw she was making rice, and my response was, "I love rice." And she's like, "Oh wow, really? Okay. So I love you, you love rice." So yeah, that was kind of an awkward moment. Wasn't really thinking. I was only half there mentally, and I do love rice.
You see, but now what did you learn from that?
That I should be present when my wife is talking and not half thinking of something else.
So did you or did you not just strengthen your relationship? See, there's a success in that. There is, I mean, come on, it happens all the time. I can't tell you how many times I try to talk to my wife and she's not listening and she's answering me. And I'm like, did you really just say I could do that? Like, hello? So but that, when you get to the paralysis of decision paralysis, when you're in that state, what you're creating, it's so weird because there's so many people now who's like, I have this anxiety disorder. And I'm like, really? What is it? And they're like, well, whenever I'm trying to figure out X, Y, or Z. And I'm like, that's not anxiety. That's just you not making a choice. You're creating your own anxiety. You're sitting there saying, I'm not doing, I'm not going, I'm not too much going on. And so they're like, oh, I have an anxiety disorder. No, you don't have an anxiety disorder. You have a problem with making decisions based on the information you have. We don't all get all the information in the world. All right. You go into an ER, if there's somebody injured and they're in the ER, when you're working in the ER, you don't know exactly what happened. You don't know exactly how it happened. You may not have a full medical history on this person and what they're allergic to or what things have happened to them before. But you try to get as much information as you can and you do what seems appropriate based on what you know. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes you find out that there was nothing you could do at all. But you still make the attempt and you use what information you have. Too many people are not put into those kind of situations where they have to grow that way, where you make a mistake and then you have or you do everything by the book and then find out that the book was wrong. These are important things for people in life. Is you have to act and screw up in order to understand the better way to act.
We learn
Okay?
more from things not going as expected than we do work as anticipated because we don't have to ask why when it works. We're okay with the outcome.
Yeah. Look, 23 years ago, I went with my roommate to his house to have dinner on a Sunday night. I went and had Sunday night dinner with his family. All right. And I ended up with a wife. Okay. All because I went to a dinner.
Wow. Door prize.
Yeah. I mean, but that's the thing is it's like you have no idea what's going to happen. If you don't, what would have happened if I told him no and just didn't go to any Sunday dinners with him? Never would have met my wife, wouldn't have my children. I'd be in a totally different place. I'd be a totally different person. But that is how the world works. She broke up with me and it could have been the end. I could have walked away, but I chose to fight for the relationship. It's all about doing what you think is right. I knew she was the right person for me, so I fought for it. If I'd given up, I wouldn't be near as happy as I am now. I probably would be skinny. No, I'd probably be fatter. I don't know. I probably would have just lived on fast food and stuff. But
One of the reasons that people, like we talked about, the reasons people get locked up into fear or into decision paralysis is because of fear. It's that fear of the outcome. What if I get it wrong? What if it's not right? And so they lock up. Another one of my favorite quotes, not the favorite quote, but another one of my favorite quotes, one of the top 10, if you will, it's the fear quote from Dune. Do you know that one?
no.
I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that obliterates all.
Nah, that makes sense. Yeah.
It goes on from there, but that's the gist of it. And I like that quote a lot.
It's a good quote. See, that's the thing, is that too much fear. Why are we afraid?
Well, like you say, everything is so public and judgmental people are everywhere. Everybody seems to attract trolls and so they get people coming at them for decisions they're making, choices they're making, ways they're behaving. And I get why people lock up. I understand why people are afraid to make a choice, but that doesn't take away the necessity of needing to make a decision from time to time.
No, it doesn't. I don't. It just makes me mad because I just feel like it's social terrorism. It's whoever screams the loudest and attacks the people controls how people act or fail to act. Whoever can make the other side feel bad about anything they do or the things they do, even if they're right. If we yell loud enough and make them feel like they've done something wrong, even if they haven't, we have control. It feels like social terrorism, and it feels like the worst people in society are starting to control kind of how people react to situations.
I've never heard of that term before, but I think there's a lot of that going on. Yeah.
And I hate. I mean, there's some bad things that happen, but there are like, okay, you hear about pew pews at educational facilities, and even the cops are like not sure what to do, and they freeze up, and somebody else goes in and fixes the problem. And there are people who hate the person who fixed the problem and think that they're a bad person. Like, how is that? They saved people. What? How is that a bad thing? You get what I'm saying?
Well, I think there's a lot of Monday morning armchair quarterbacking going on there. They weren't there, they weren't in that position, and so they want to second guess with that perfect hindsight as to, well, you could have done this, you could have done that. Well, it's really hard to do that when you're not there in the moment under that pressure and stress, trying to worry about, in this case, kids' lives. And so it's often that people will judge without knowing the circumstances, knowing the pressure and stress that others are under when they make that decision. So it's probably not the best thing to judge people for that unless you understand where they're coming from because you've been there, or you understand completely what kind of stress they were under in that moment.
Almost sounds like the experts that talk so much about things aren't really experts. They're just theoretical experts because they study everything after the fact and then try to be an expert from that direction. That doesn't work. Okay, the experts are the people who are in the mud, in the nasty moment, and having to make that decision. And sometimes you lock up.
Yeah.
Sometimes people lock up, but you have to find a way to move forward. You have to find a way to act.
What you're talking about is the ivory tower. People get in the ivory tower and then they look down on the world and they want to judge it from a bird's eye view, not having an understanding or having lost the understanding once they climbed into the ivory tower. And then they want to dictate from on high without the practical knowledge of what's going on anymore. You would get a lot of that in academia, where professors are so out of touch with the reality. I'm probably going to get some hate for that. And I'm not saying all professors are that way, but there are certainly some. But they've lost touch with the everyday man, and they're so caught up in that research or whatever they work on that that's how they want to view the world, through that lens, without having any kind of practical knowledge of how that would apply.
They've created an echo chamber in their class. Maybe they've created an echo chamber in their classroom where they say the same thing every class, so many semesters, that now it's just something that they always repeat, never taking in any new information because they're already the teacher. And then the teachers around, then the students of theirs who become teachers are now their colleagues and all have the same point of view. And now you've created this giant echo. See? And then what does that do? Again, that's a different kind of paralysis. But at the same time, it still falls under, in my view, it would still fall under decision paralysis because they've made a decision to freeze themselves in a moment in time as opposed to keeping themselves open.
There is a psychological term for that, say echo chamber, but what you're describing, the term for that would be psychological incest.
Ooh.
Where you do not allow any outside information to come in, so you just repeat the same thing over and over and over again. And do you know who's notorious for doing that? Cults.
Wait, hold on, time out. Wait a minute. Yeah, that makes total sense.
That is a cult behavior, to not allow any outside influence, to not allow anybody with a different thought to come in and say anything. That is cult behavior.
What? I mean,
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, you.
It promotes that psychological incest because you don't allow anybody to have a different thought. You beat them down if they try and think something different, to where there is only one right answer. There is only one way to think and behave. And if you do anything different, you're shunned, you're bad, you're ostracized, punished.
And any information that someone tries to present from the outside is immediately disregarded as a lie. They're trying to trick you. This is all, BS. So if you take that with what I was talking about the concept of social terrorism, they kind of go hand in hand in the world that we live in right now, towards creating a decision paralysis for many people, because there are a lot of people who all think there's only one proper solution to a situation.
Right.
And anybody who goes against that gets attacked. Then other people become afraid to take action that they think is correct because it doesn't adhere to the social orthodoxy that's being created.
Well, what happens to the nail that sticks its head up?
It gets hit. It gets hammered down. Yep.
It's that whole idea that we cannot accept outside thoughts. But we're diverting from the topic.
I apologize, but
I
so
wanna
let's get
go
back to
back. So
paralysis.
anyway, some other things how to avoid decision paralysis. Another thing I suggest to couples when we're talking about dating, aside from those things I'd already mentioned, was to all right, if the two of you want to go out, neither one of you wants to decide. First one who gets there, you can narrow it down to like 3 places, then the other person has to pick from those 3. That way, they don't have to decide out of everything, what are we in the mood for? I only have to decide between one of 3 places. And the other person doesn't have to pick, they just have to throw stuff out. They throw out 3 different places, and then the other person is the one that has to narrow it down from there to the final choice. Another
So you
thing,
get someone who, like my wife, will be like, none of those sound good. It's like, ouch. Throw out 3. It's like, those don't sound good. So you throw out 3 more. It's like, those don't sound good. It's like,
yeah,
all right.
well, this is one of those things you have to decide ahead of time that you have to agree with your wife to where it's going to be, okay, this is how it's going to be. If I come up with 3, you have to pick one of those 3. If you don't like any of them, tough. You should have been the one to jump in with the 3 options, and then I would have picked the one of those 3.
Yep. There has to be that, that are always the joke of, hey, guess where I'm taking you to dinner? And then when they say a restaurant, you go, yeah, you're right. And then you take them there, you can always do that. So
another thing that I encourage people to focus on is what's going to be good enough in this moment. Not perfect, not something that's going to make us worried about the outcome, but what's good enough for right now. If I worry about the future, I'm going to give myself anxiety. But if I take right now and say, is this a good decision or is this a good choice right now? I mean, let's go back to the dinner idea. Okay, Taco Bell. Okay, I think that's probably good enough for now. It's Taco Bell. So we can go do Taco Bell. We go do Taco Bell. What always happens after Taco Bell?
yes.
You visit the porcelain throne room and you spend some time in there regretting your life decisions, but it tastes good, so we all do it. If we worry about, oh, well, how is this going to affect me? Am I going to be upset and sick and all of that? Then we're going to feed back into that decision paralysis. It might be a wise choice to pick something different, but it does taste good. But in that moment, when you're hungry and you can't decide where to go, just understand that sometimes there's consequences to the choices we make. We go to Taco Bell because we like Taco Bell on the in route, and then it's questionable later. But if we sit there and stew about, I'm hungry, I don't know where to go, we don't end up eating anything, and then we feel awful anyway, and no decisions are made and nothing moves forward. Now, here's one that a lot of people like, and in some situations I like this, but when it comes to decision paralysis, I question this option, because what I'm talking about is a pro and con list. It's good for making decisions. I like using pro and con lists for making decisions, but when I'm already stuck trying to decide something, when I'm in that decision paralysis mind frame, giving me the option to, oh, let's take a while and think about good and bad. And all I'm doing is kicking the can down the road. And I've seen this happen so many times where people are like, oh, well, I need to make this list. Well, I haven't thought of everything yet that's a pro about it or a con about it, so I need to give it more time. And they just avoid making that decision. So if you're already stuck, I don't know that I encourage the pro-con list. But in life, pro-con lists are really good for helping you make decisions, just not if you're stuck in something that needs to be decided like in the immediate future.
Yeah, I mean, when Jody and I get stuck on like a dinner option, if it's just me and her, I'm like, look, this is just about us being together. The restaurant is really irrelevant. It's really about, this is supposed to be the time where we are together, not worrying about everything else. It's just supposed to be us. So who cares what it is, as long as it fills our bellies and gives us time together, because couples need that, So you have to, however you can help them get over that rut. I like pro-con lists for long-term decisions.
Yeah.
If you're thinking big, long-term, or financially, heavy things, let's get a pro-con list. For the simple day-to-day, minute-to-minute things, pro-con lists, you shouldn't have to make a list. It should be pretty obvious. Do I put my hand in the oven without an oven mitt, or do I take the 2 seconds to get an oven mitt? That seems like
that pro-con list is pretty quick to come up with.
It should be, but that's the thing is that, people freeze over the weirdest things, I don't understand. Without breaking any rules, could you share what the like crazy, I wouldn't want to say crazy, what the most odd moment of a decision paralysis that you've heard?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Like what seems like the most, like, is it like what shoes to wear in the morning, like something like that, people, something very trivial that seemed to really lock somebody up without, being too specific.
I've seen examples of people that don't like going out of the house to go shopping. And the result is they end up spending a lot more money eating out because they don't take the time to go shopping because they keep avoiding that. They keep going, well, I don't want to go out. And so they're like, well, I need to, there's no food in the house. And I've seen some people go on that line of thinking for months without going shopping. And so the amount of money they spend is astronomical compared to what it would be if they went to the grocery store and stocked up on food stores.
I don't want to deal with people so much that it's detrimental to myself.
Right. And they
Yeah.
create that cognitive dissonance in their head. I don't like people. I don't want to deal with people. I don't want to leave the house, but I need food. And so they bounce back and forth. They know they need to do one thing. They don't do that one thing. They avoid that one thing because they don't want to do that one thing. They end up spiking their anxiety. They don't take care of the problem. And then they end up spending way more money than they would if they went to the grocery store.
Which then creates a whole new spike of anxiety because of the financial aspect that's now on the table when they realize what they've done. See, okay, so one paralysis moment can lead to either more paralysis moments or just a bunch of extra anxiety. If we're not making a decision and then we're taking and we're avoiding that decision, we could be creating our own wheel of anxiety pressures because of trying to avoid the decision.
A lot of times people will increase their anxiety by avoiding doing something they don't want to do. They engage in that kicking the can down the road, if you will, that decision paralysis. Once they increase their anxiety, they increase the likelihood of having more decision paralysis. And it's just a self-feeding problem.
And then you just get people not living. Are you really living if you're stuck in that point? I mean, are you really experiencing the joys that life has to offer?
Good, bad, or ugly, life was meant to be lived, not watched.
Yes, we have to engage. That's why it's so important. That's why I give my kids so much, like, hey guys, this is what needs to be done. And when they get all locked up about it, I'm like, look, you need to make a decision. And then if I have to, I step in and go, well, you're not making a decision, so I'm going to make a decision and I'm going to do something. And then they're like, well, wait a minute, I wanted to. I'm like, hey, we don't have forever. You can't just sit around forever on a decision. You have to jump or not. Sometimes you just have to act.
If you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. Gotta love Rush. Anyway, thank you very much, Dwayne. I appreciate you coming in again and being a guest on the podcast one more time. I'll try not to screw this one up. I would like to thank everybody for watching this episode, for participating and being part of my black sheep crew, if you will. I started this endeavor worried about whether or not people were going to engage. And now it's more than me just fearing what people are going to perceive it as. It's more about me doing this because I committed. I think it's a good idea. And it gets some thought out there that hopefully will help some people. So if you find that anything I'm saying or Dwayne is saying is helping you, please feel free to subscribe. I could use the subscriptions. It's good for my ego to know that somebody listens, but I would like to be able to see people. I would like to encourage people to email me. If you go to my website, which is piratetherapist.com. You can email me there and tell me some podcast ideas that you would like to see. You can ask me questions. I'm not going to do therapy there, but I am happy to have discussions or take ideas on what you would like to see on one of these episodes. So please please subscribe, tell your friends, encourage them to come take a look, watch it, see what they think. All right. So for this week, I would like to tell you all have a great week. Don't walk off the plank if you don't need to, and make a decision when you have to. Try to not get stuck. We don't do any good when we're stuck. Remember, progress doesn't happen where we're comfortable and when there's no momentum. So we have to keep pushing forward. We were built to do that. So you take care, have a wonderful week, and I will see you all next week.